Hey guys, how you doing today? I'm making this video for Last Rose. Last Rose is one of my subscribers. Just recently posted, "No, you left us." And there's something to that. You know, I've been posting almost daily these last few months, and I've kind of dropped off, and I know that's true. And the only explanation I have is, god damn, is it ever hard to even find a little bit of time to sit down and do these videos, you know? God damn. I'm back to work now. I work in a toy store. It's a blessed place. It's a blessed place. I live in the beaches. I'm living in the beaches, working in a toy store, right? Like, I think I live a charmed, blessed life. I don't pretend otherwise. I consider myself kind of an observer of what's going on, but I don't necessarily... I also consider myself a bit of a victim of capitalism, certainly. But I think I've landed on my feet, and I'm doing okay currently. One of our competitors, I work at a company, it's Mastermind Toys here in Canada, right? I have nothing bad to say about that company. I think they're a wonderful company. They do everything they can to help everyone, customers, employees. I think that they are doing the right thing. But one of our competitors, Toys, just declared bankruptcy. Toys R Us, another one of our competitors, just declared bankruptcy throughout the States. Here in Canada, they also declared bankruptcy. So our competitors are dropping off. It makes me nervous. Because now here we are, Mastermind Toys, and our big competition's no longer Toys. It's going to be Walmart. It's going to be Amazon, right? John could be out of a job pretty soon. Sooner than I'd like. Because I like working at the toy store, and I like working in the beaches, and I like all of those sorts of things, and I think that that's all very nice. But that said, I consider myself an artist. I'm in the arts. I attempted to be in the arts and be in theater specifically, and it was just not going to happen. And I knew it wasn't going to happen because I wasn't able to really have the time to be able to do it. I used to live with someone who tolerated my inability to pay rent, my inability to... I was always one step behind financially, always one step behind financially because of my pursuit of this artistic endeavor, and eventually it came to a point where it was okay, I either have to give up the arts or I have to really seriously restructure my life in a way that's not tenable. I'm talking about homelessness. I'm talking about not paying rent, that kind of thing. And that's not going to be serious, and that's not something that's a burden that I can put, that I would have had to have put on other people. And I couldn't have tolerated that. And so here I am. And one of the things that I've really noticed, there's this thread that's run through that's been oh, well, you're in quarantine, right? Why don't you take that time in quarantine to start writing that novel, or to start doing these artistic endeavors, or to start doing that kind of thing? And that's a laugh. That's just ignorance, is all that is. Because it discredits the stress and the difficulty that the artistic endeavor actually takes. It pretends as though writing is just something you can do, right? Why can't you just do that, right? Oh, just sit down, write some words. What's so hard about that? It completely disavows the emotional toil, the struggle, the focus, the discipline that these things require. And the reason why people who are in this quarantine state aren't rushing to write the next novel and to do these sorts of things is because they understand that the quarantine ends. And they don't want to take the time and the effort to fall in love with something that they know is going to end before it's finished. because that would break their heart more than anything. It would break my heart. Like, I've got stories in my head. I've got ideas. I've got things that I would like to pursue, certainly, but 3 months is not enough time. Like, what are you talking about? That's a joke, right? If you're sitting there being like, oh yeah, 3 months, you were in quarantine 3 months, like, what? A year is barely enough time to write some of these things, to do some of these things, right? And the uncertainty that we live in, and this idea that we're going to sit down and we're going to write this story, and of course there's no, like, I'm not being paid yet. Like, I would have to pay to write the story and then attempt to go around and sell it and attempt to make some money on it in this capitalist society, and that the time I spend writing and endeavoring in this kind of stuff, the end is heartbreak. I know it's true. Like, I've written 500-page novels that have gone nowhere, right? And I've written all sorts of things. I've written plays. I've written all this kind of stuff that go nowhere. When they go nowhere, and when that happens, it breaks your heart. And so why would a person who is in this kind of quarantine state go and set themselves up for that kind of heartbreak? I just don't think that that's serious. And the capitalist system we live in sets people up for heartbreak, because you need to sell things for money. That's what it comes down to. And it turns out the things that you sell for money are distractions. If you write something that has something serious to say about the human condition, it's not going to sell, because that's hard. That's tough work for people. What you're writing needs to be mainly a distraction. There are minor exceptions. There are things that have slipped through. There are storytellers that have managed to tell their stories in the midst of their salesmanship. I think about Joker. Joker is a good example. Breaking Bad, I think, is another good example, where salesmen who write things that are for distraction purposes primarily, things that have pat sort of endings, manage to get onto a project with the right people at the right time to tell one particular story that actually does say something that just goes beyond the kind of typical proto-fascist narrative we're spoon-fed for the most part. But those are very rare. Those are very, very rare. And I'm talking like once in a decade sort of things. Like, I don't expect another movie like Joker in another 10 years. And we're not going to see something like Breaking Bad again on television for another 10, 15 years, certainly. So they're very, very rare, and they're these just very particular kind of cobbling together of where artists who have been selling themselves commercially for years and years, like the lead of Breaking Bad was the dad from Malcolm in the Middle, for God's sakes. Like, the most distraction-based television you can possibly think about. And so you have these salesmen and these artists who have had to sell themselves coming together, and they create something kind of out of this zeitgeist of things that have, and it takes on kind of a mystical quality in that way. But certainly the society is not geared to ask itself, hey, what's actually going on? Like, what's happening in the society? What are these? Can we tell stories that reflect on the human condition? That's not what Hollywood is about. That's not what the arts are about. Like, something like Harry Potter, for example. Like, Harry Potter is as distractionary as it can get, right? It's magic. You have a young boy who just sort of gets through the situation. He fights this dark wizard, but doesn't really say anything about the human condition. It's just sort of the classic good versus evil narrative. People like Star Wars has become that as well. Like, it's this, like, even when it started, it was just sort of the classic good versus evil narrative, and I think people loved it because it was a science fiction narrative in a world where there weren't a lot of science fiction narratives. There weren't a lot of people doing that correctly. Like, you had like 2001: A Space Odyssey, that kind of thing, but those were sort of these slow-paced, methodical endeavors, whereas Star Wars was just like laser beams and I have a lightsaber and there's the Force, and they were fun and they were entertaining and they were set in a universe that we hadn't really seen done, committed to, or done correctly. But now they've just become schlock, and they're just as meta nonsense as they can get. And so, anyway, so for me, like, this idea that someone's just gonna, oh, well, you have this opportunity, why don't you pursue these art things, as if you can just turn this hard corner and make that kind of happen immediately, as if it's not like, pursuing the arts, being involved in the artistic pursuit is this perpetual state of carving pieces of yourself away and reading and learning things and seeing in other characters, fictional or non-fictional, and recognizing attributes within them that you see in yourself, and either fostering the things that you like or eliminating the things that you recognize in the villains you despise. And it's very telling to me in this age that there is this denigration of the arts that's going on. That the artists are deeply insulted, that they are ground down, that they are spat upon, that they are not given the freedom or the ability to explore, meditate on, pursue, to take risks, to fail, to do any of this kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, some capitalist needs a latte. And that's really what it comes down to, right? Like, you take a look at Disney, in my view, is the quintessential reason for this. I recently watched the live-action Aladdin, and it was very much a movie that was put together specifically to exploit the nostalgia of 90s kids. It was not a good movie. It was like the shadow and an echo of a good movie. And you would think that a multi-billion-dollar industry, like, if you're a multi-billion-dollar company like Disney and you're going to take a massive risk to retell a story from our childhood like this, you better goddamn do it right. And it's very obvious that they didn't care to do it right. They just didn't care to. The whole thing smacked of good enough. That the executive producers and the producers and the director and the actors and everyone just had this attitude around them, and there was this aura around them of just like, this is good enough. This will sell, which is the point. They didn't care to make something that was good. They didn't care to make something that was even enjoyable in that distractionary sort of sense. They cared to make something that would make them money. And as long as it was good enough to attract a certain type of person, this nostalgic 90s kid, to the theater, then they would make money on it. And they did make money on it with this sort of schlocky mess. And you start to wonder, like, well, where are the people who are moving away from this sort of insular dynamic? Like, the remake cycle is on, and like, we're constantly in this cyclical nature of remaking things, and it's very difficult to actually make something new or interesting. And the reason why that is because all of our artists are working at Starbucks. They're flipping burgers at McDonald's, right? They're not actively engaged in a process of creation that results in something that we can witness. That's not what's happening. If you're a creative type, or if you're an artist, at the end of the day, all you really are is a salesman and a pimp and a prostitute, right? You have to, if you're an actor, you have to prostitute yourself out financially. You have to. There's no alternative. And you constantly need to be answering the question, well, who's going to buy this? And people aren't going to buy something that makes them hurt. That's really the truth of it, right? They're not going to invest the time and the money and the and all of that kind of stuff into something that tells them that they are foolish, that they are existing in this kind of sphere that no one wants to believe that they are the Nazis, right? No one wants to believe that they are wrong. And so, of course, moneyed power, and of course audiences are going to be far more willing to fund and put their money towards stories that make them heroes, right? That they're happily going to fund all kinds of projects that turn their kind of white supremacist positions and their oppressive positions into hero narratives where they are the ultimate good. Of course they're going to put money behind that. And if somebody were to stand up and say, like, hey, maybe we should investigate whether or not our society is actually doing the right thing. Maybe we should investigate whether or not our society is actually pursuing righteous causes or moral or ethical causes. You're not going to get funding for that. And you're not going to have an audience for that. Because people are exhausted. They're exhausted by a capitalist system, and they don't want to spend time watching a movie that tells them how bad the system they live in is. They want to watch the next Avengers movie, right? They want to see something that's going to distract them for this evening and let them go to sleep kind of thinking about wizards and lightning bolts, you know? And because of this, the society is tearing itself apart. Because there are these narratives that want to be told, that want to be expressed. And I attempt to glance on them, to touch down on them with these videos. But even me doing these videos has become so difficult, right? The capitalist experiment, the failed capitalist experiment, eats away at my time in a way that, and I'm feeling it. And when I was in quarantine, I mean, I could just sort of, at a whim, pick up this camera and just kind of do something. But now it really is like, oh shit, like I have to like really mean it. Like I really have to mean it. To sit down for 20 minutes, half hour, and actually do one of these videos is a I'm seeing now, especially as I'm getting back into work, is a real choice that you have to make, and it's a sacrifice to your well-being in other ways. Like you really have to decide to make it happen, and that's something I have to do. And Last Rose, thank you for putting putting my feet on the fire in this way. It's something I definitely do need to do, and I want to do, and I want to believe that these videos have a place. And the fact that there's any one person in the world that is saying, we miss you and we want to see you, or I miss you and I want to see you, is enough for me to continue on. And that's a beautiful thing. And so thank you for that. Because it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to be discouraged. It's easy to be taken away. It's easy to be whisked away in the momentum of what the world is. And like I'm not doing this for money, right? And that's the thing that makes it most difficult, is that this isn't a transactional exchange. This is just the exchange of ideas and the hope that there are other people out in the world who think the way that I think. Because I think we are headed towards a very large catastrophe. A large catastrophe, not only cultural, like not only a cultural catastrophe, which is what I've been speaking about mainly in this video, but I think that there is a material catastrophe coming our way through climate change. And there are predators that exist in our society that are whisking away the benefits of our work, and they're not participating in that labor. So I think the moral of this video for me is I have to plant my flag a little stronger. I need to make a more I have to be more dedicated specifically, and I have to carve the time out now. Before I could just do it. During the quarantine I could just do it. You know, and it wouldn't matter when. But now I really do have to carve the time. And I want to, because I think that I'm very concerned that there are dark forces around that are attempting to protect this failed system of capital, and it's becoming more and more obvious that they're willing to protect this failed system of capital through any means necessary, and I do mean any means necessary. And there needs to be voices who are willing to look at them and say, there's a limit, that you can't simply devolve into fascism and have us accept that, which is exactly where we're going. Anyway, this one was for you, Last Rose. I hope you're doing well out there. I hope that the capitalist system isn't chewing you up the way that it's chewing the rest of us up. And if it is, then I guess I hope you take some solace in knowing that you're not alone. I'm going to try to get back to doing these daily. I think what I need to do is just like when I finish my shift at work, walk home, sit where I am right now, and just do the recording. And what comes out, comes out. And I've been concerned because before I was able to sort of think and chew and contemplate, whereas now, you know, I'm at work and I've got to focus everything I've got on that work. And so I'm worried about the quality of what I'm going to say, but I think I just need to have faith and trust in what I'm doing. And hope that that my gut and the ability to and my abilities are going to carry the day. Anyway. Okay. And I hope you guys are all doing well out there. I hope you're organizing. I need to get better at that as well. I hope you're organizing. Anyway, love you all. Good luck.